Hey, Cougar family. Welcome to Season 1 of the CougsFirst podcast, your one-stop business network, a podcast all about life, business, and the best college in the world, Washington State University. Join us each episode to hear stories from your favorite Cougs, interviewed by yours truly, Kelsey Knutson, class of 2012. We're so glad you're here, and we can't wait to dive into this week's conversation. So grab a cup of coffee, crack open that beer, or pour a glass of wine, and let's kick off another episode of the CougsFirst podcast. Hey, Cougar family. Today's episode is a special one because obviously you're listening because you love WSU. We all love the WSU community. Go Cougs. Of course, that's why we're here. But within WSU, there's this very secret community, really tight-knit group of people that have maybe recently rediscovered each other. And that is all of the people who have played Butch T. Cougar, our beloved mascot. And today I'm joined by Max Bear and Zach Wirtz, who are going to give us all of the tea, hopefully, and history of the mascot, what it's like. I have some questions queued up. I can't wait to dive in. So Max, will you quickly just say a quick hi, introduce yourself, and then Zach, I'll have you go next.
Hi, Kelsey. Nice to meet you. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I was Butch T. Cougar from 2012 to 2015, and then once I was done being Butch, I put together our alumni group. I'm really happy to be joined by Zach, too. He's another very influential Butch, so I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Zach Wirtz. I was a student from 02 to 07, Butch, during those times, and just excited to be here. We had Max reached out to everybody, kind of wanting to get them all together, and I thought that was a great project. So just really excited to be here and talk about the program.
Yeah, I think that part's really interesting. I also have Butch questions, but Max, could you kind of quickly explain to the audience this project that you took on of wrangling all the Butches? It took 4 years. Tell us about it.
Sure. So I did my time as Butch 2012 to 2015, and as you probably already know, the identity of the student playing Butch is a complete secret, and it only becomes public when you retire. And then once you retire, you're inducted into this alumni group. Zach, I don't know how you would describe it, but it was like a Facebook group. We call ourselves the Furternity. We're big into puns because we wear fur. But there were not many people in that group. It was Zach, a few others, and me. And our biggest I guess one of the coolest things about us being a secret, was also our biggest Achilles heel, because once we had graduated, we didn't know who the other Butches were. And now it's a little bit easier to find Butches or stay in contact because we have email, cell phone, Facebook. But think about the people in the 70s or the 80s. They had lost contact and we didn't know who they were. So I realized we were missing a whole bunch of history. I reached out to the athletics department. They never kept a list of who was Butch. I reached out to the Alumni Association. They didn't know who the heck we were because we were a secret. So it turned into this grassroots, me just asking everyone I knew, hey, have you heard of Butch? Do you know who this would be? Do you know someone in the band? Do you know someone on Rally Squad? And our alumni group is so tight and so passionate. Everyone knows somebody and somebody knows Butch. So sometimes I would find them through word of mouth. Sometimes it was, oh, I know a friend who thinks they were roommates with Butch, and go down that rabbit hole. Sometimes I would find them on LinkedIn. Sometimes I would get a name and then find their kid on Facebook and somehow convince them to accept my request and then give me their dad's phone number. But it took 4.5 years, but I tracked down every single one.
Wow. And that's important and unique because before Butch in the human costume form, there was an actual animal Butch. So could you tell us about that?
Yeah. So, our first mascot was a dog. It was a really cute dog. Yeah, I'll say puppy. I won't say dog. It was a really cute puppy named Squirt. And then I believe it was in hold on, let's see. Let me review my notes. It was early 1900s. I think it was 1919. We were playing an away game and some newspaper article referred to us as fighting like Cougars, or we were in a cartoon and we were depicted as Cougars. So we became the Cougars. We eventually were gifted a live cougar cub by the then Washington State governor. And then we had 5 more cougar cubs after that, and they would all live on campus.
And then maybe not sustainable or do you know when that transition happened? Do you have a history of that?
I do. Yeah. So this was early 1970s. So, late 1960s, early 70s, there was this movement of people becoming more aware of civil rights issues and also animal rights activism. So while it was really cool to have a cougar on campus, and for a while Butch actually lived in a cage right where the cougar statue is, right outside of Martin Stadium. And that does sound cool, but it's really not good for the animals. And there was also this cage on wheels that we would pull around the stadium after we scored a goal or after we scored a touchdown. And again, sounds cool, but really not good for the animal. So after a while, after our sixth cougar, the student body voted to end this and instead in 1978 begin a program where a student was in costume. So I thought that was great news because 35 years later, I got a job, but that's how we got here.
So cool. Okay.
And to add a little context to that, the sixth one, that final one, his dentist came in for a routine teeth cleaning and accidentally euthanized him on accident. And that was again at the height of the animal rights movements, and so it was going to be extremely difficult at that point to replace and make the case for a next Butch. So it was an unfortunate end, but it turned out for great for folks like Max and I.
That's so cool. I have so many questions. We just have to be efficient because I have to get all of them in, which is it normal for the mascot to be like a total secret hidden thing? Like other colleges, do they kind of do that as well?
Most schools do and have it. And there's some practical reasons behind that too. You don't, when that person goes out to, maybe parties or the bars or in public, you don't have to peg them with the branding of the university and the program and everything. But then it's also fun, it was always fun for everybody to not know. That was kind of one of the best parts.
So how do you try out for something that's a secret? That's like my first question.
So there are open tryouts every single year, usually run by the cheer department. So If you're listening to this and you are thinking about being Butch, you of course have to be a student, but reach out to the cheer coach or the spirit director, and there's always open tryouts. The tryouts are usually a little bit weird because you're right, we usually don't exchange names. I remember when I tried it out, the first thing the judges did was write numbers on a piece of tape and put them on our chest. So we wouldn't even be referred to by our names. I was number 2. And then you go through the whole tryout process and you never really learn anyone's names. And that way, if you see that person on campus, you don't know their name and you don't even know if they got picked.
What are they looking for? Like, what is the tryout criteria for Butch?
Almost everybody's going to tell you the first thing is energy. You got to have a big energy and a lot of it, because it's going to take a lot of energy to get through, the job. And then, you're looking for big movements. The mascot moves away, a lot bigger than you would think. So you're just looking for big movements, a lot of energy, the ability to kind of interact, and a lot of the nonverbal communication things there.
And I don't know, maybe you can you tumble in a Butch costume? Can you do splits and stuff?
I was able to one time. That's the thing. Most of the Butch, the guys that get the job aren't always the most tumbling. They don't have the biggest tumbling backgrounds, and so it is weird with the weight, with the head and everything else. But there was a time I had for just a very, very short amount of time the ability to do that, and it went quick. And that honestly though is probably one of the most frequent requests for Butch to do is, Butch, do a backflip. Just come on, give me something else to do.
Yeah, I didn't warn you both before, but I was a cheerleader in high school, so I'm coming in with that hat on here. So with that in mind, you're right. Like when you're cheering or dancing, you have facial expressions you can make. So yeah, you're moving your body, but you can engage the audience in other ways, your voice and stuff. With Butch, you literally just have your body. So how do you prepare for that? Like, how do you prepare for a Butch tryout?
Watch cartoons, play charades from 30 or 50 yards away just to get your movements big, and think about crowd interaction. But there's also some training after you get the job of Butch. So there are cheer camps, and the mascot usually goes with the cheer and the dance team to these camps. And in that camp, there's mascot specific stuff, how to build a prop, how to engage a crowd, a small group, a large group, one-on-one. There's also a child psychology course, which is really important because mascots are scary to kids. And I totally understand why. So I'm 6'2", and then with the Butch head on, I'm probably 6'5" or 6'6". I have huge, unblinking eyes, massive teeth. It's scary, especially for someone under 8 or 6.
Or my best friend, literally.
Or your best friend. There are some adults that are still scared of mascots, and I totally understand why. You don't know this person. As we've said, their identity is a secret. What are they doing? It can be scary. So learning to get down on a kid's level and not just towering over them is really important. And there's specific strategies you can use, but yeah, that's part of the training.
CougsFirst is your one-stop business network. Looking for a new bank or insurance? Think CougsFirst. Buying a new car? Think CougsFirst. Hiring a Coug? Think CougsFirst. Need a mentor? You guessed it. Think CougsFirst. What makes WSU great is Cougs supporting Cougs, and they are in every business. And we'll take your call. Google it at CougsFirst.org. And as always, go Cougs. That's so cool.
Oh, one more thing. So
Yeah.
Butch has a specific character. And I think this is one of the cool things about Butch. So when I became Butch, I learned how to walk like Butch, how to skip like Butch. What does he do when there's a touchdown? Do I high five people? Do I low five people? Do I do something fun with my tail? And the cool thing about this is Butch is supposed to be a pretty linear character. So the same character that Zach was, I eventually was. And let's just say fast forward, I have a niece or nephew going to Washington State University. They're going to interact with the same character that I portrayed. So throughout these years, and really this was part of my project, throughout these 40-something years of Butch, everyone has made a contribution to this character, and we've carried it throughout this whole time.
That's so, of course that makes sense, because you think of even us as adults, we've probably interacted with multiple Butches, and they're really, you're right, there isn't a ton of deviation in what you experience. It's so cool. Okay, so of all the sports to be Butch at, which one is the most fun, do you think, both of you? Like a football game, a basketball game?
Great question. Most fun. Honestly, it really isn't. It's whatever building or room you are in, it's the fullest room with the rockinest crowd. So you can have, we've had great, like, even with the volleyball matches, when it's just been absolutely packed in there, and the place only holds maybe 1,000, 2,000 people, and but it's just been deafening loud, and just every point is going crazy. So it's really, I guess it's more the crowd size is the best, but over measure, I don't know. That's tough, Max. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like picking between who's my favorite child, right?
Yeah.
Like a parent's
Yeah.
never going to be able to do that. So obviously football is a highlight because you get to ride this motorcycle in a 50-yard line, do the Go Cougs in front of everyone, especially in a sold out stadium. It's awesome. But I've also mascotted at golf games or matches, which is kind of weird because you can't really get people out. You're not even really supposed to clap, but they just gave me a golf cart and said, go drive around and take photos for a few hours. That's also really fun. I thought swimming and soccer was a ton of fun too. So I agree with Zach. If it's a crowd that's engaged, I love it.
Actually, I can remember we did a charity. Whenever we would do charity, like kids tournaments, like the smallest kids things, when they're out there playing, like every now and then we'd go to a very small kids soccer tournament or something like that. Those are the fun ones, honestly. Those are the most fun because those kids, everybody is into Butch at that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zach, you've spurred my memory. So one of my favorite events was Special Olympics basketball tournaments on the Pullman campus, because you walk in and I would usually wear like a referee's outfit, and they already have a referee there. So you're kind of this flex player, and you start out as a referee, and then someone passes you a ball and you're on their team. And then you put a kid on your shoulders and you're on the other team dunking. And it's just absolute pandemonium and a ton of fun.
That's the perfect segue into my next nosy Kelsey question, which is, what's the most random Butch request you've had to show up at an event or something?
Ooh, that's a good one. One time they needed Butch to be up in the bosun's seat of a sailboat for opening day of yachting season. Here in the Montlake Cut out in Lake Union, they're like, yeah, we want Butch to go up in the chair and lead it's high up there. I mean, you're just strapped in this little chair and you're high, and this boat is moving, and this thing, like, it sways back and forth. It was it was nuts up there. It was crazy. You were up there a while.
So to catch all the listeners up, you can rent Butch for an hourly fee. Butch will come do almost anything you want. So both Zach and I and all the other Butches, we've been called to a lot of weddings, baby showers, business openings, birthday parties, retirement parties, you name it, we've been there. Yeah, I've always thought birthday parties have been kind of interesting. I've ran into a few where they didn't realize that I didn't bring an extra set of clothes and I couldn't just like walk away. So they had rented me for an hour, and then I had a contact drop me off, and then they were going to come pick me up in an hour. So I do my little thing, and then they say, okay, we're done. You can go, or you can get changed and come out and drink with us. They don't realize I'm drenched in sweat underneath and I can't really put the costume anywhere. And now I'm stuck there for another 50 minutes until my person comes pick me up. And I can't walk around in this costume and do anything really fun. So yeah, that's always really weird. Another weird event was the swim team wanted Butch to swim with them for a video. And I did it. So when I first came in as Butch, the spirit coordinator at the time said, oh, you used to be a lifeguard. You must be good at swimming. This is a request we've had for a while. More or less, you're probably the least likely to die. So go ahead and do this. And it was a ton of fun. It's on YouTube, and it was actually scary for a little bit because Butch gets pretty heavy and you can't really breathe through a wet costume. But I did it. I'm alive. And that was probably the weirdest thing I've done.
Yeah, I like how both kind of tie in with water. That's really funny.
One other thing I do remember is it was a proposal. A former Butch actually wanted to propose to his then girlfriend at the time, who also worked in the athletic department, and he had just graduated and was working there. And so during one of the games at the Seahawks stadium, he wanted Butch to, go up to his girlfriend and try to give her flowers and everything. And he walked up and pushes Butch away, like, no, which made everybody rain these boos down. It was hilarious. And then he drops down to a knee and everybody went, nuts. But being involved in a proposal, that would probably be the most odd request.
Have you ever been hired to be Butch and then your friends are there and they don't know that you're there and then it's you? Or in a room?
All the time. I loved it. I would knock their books out of their hands. I would take their car keys and throw them like far and like down stories of stairs. They would have to go like out of building windows and things. And they would have no idea who did it or why Butch was so mean. But I would have many friends who just like, I hate Butch. He's always so mean to me. I don't know what the deal is. And they would have no idea. Absolutely none.
Yeah. How did they just think you didn't like sports? Like, how do you navigate that when you're actually in college and doing all of that?
It's tough, but to be honest, most people don't look too far into it. So I had a cover story, and I'm not going to share it because I think Current Butch is probably using that same cover story, but it worked really well. So you tell your friends the cover story, but there are a few key people that you do need to tell that you're Butch, namely your roommate, because you don't want someone else to come to your roommate and say, hey, Adam, I saw that, or I think Max is Butch. And I don't want Adam to say, oh yeah, you know what, that makes sense. He came home from the basketball game super sweaty last night. Can't have him saying that. So he obviously knows my cover story. He knows who I am, and he knows that this is like an airtight secret. But yeah, you got to have a cover story, and you get kind of good at lying. And eventually people do get a little bit frustrated because they know that you're always wearing Coug stuff, you're a super fan, but you never want to sit with them at the basketball games. So you got to do some fancy footwork there.
Wow. Yeah. Zach, any thoughts?
That is right on. And the same thing, everybody gets their own cover story that kind of works for their own, kind of personality. We had one guy who was an engineer, and he just said that, he was he worked as an engineer for the stadium during games, and that's why you always saw him wearing Coug stuff, and that's why you always saw him in the athletic department, and why you never saw him during games, because he was back engineering. He just would always say, I'm back there doing engineering, and nobody really pressed on him. But because he was an engineering major and was on that, it worked out. So everybody kind of has their own story. And I was lucky enough in my time to have one of my roommates at a big house. One of my roommates was on the cheer squad, and so that did, just kind of like what Max said, like that did help to kind of keep a couple of, because you definitely don't want to be, like have folks snooping around your room and stuff and things like that. But the secrecy is a big deal. It is a very big deal, and you wear it as a badge of honor that you don't let anybody in on it.
What makes WSU great? Cougs support Cougs, and they are in every business and want to give you a good deal. Looking for a new bank or insurance? Think CougsFirst. Selling your house? Think CougsFirst. Need to plan a party? Pick a venue or set your menu? Think CougsFirst. Did we make our point? Start to Google it at CougsFirst.org. And as always, go Cougs! Yeah, that would be, you're committed. It's not like you have to keep a secret for a little amount of time. It's years.
Yeah. And the cheerleaders, they take it seriously too, because pretty much they all know, and they take it very seriously too. And if, like if a cheerleader gives you up, not only are you gone because now you've been exposed, then they obviously are gone as well. So they know there's a little bit of keeping them around as well.
Do you feel like you miss out on parts of the college experience, or do you feel like you get an even deeper college experience?
I'd say it's just different. It's definitely not the normal college experience, because what do I want to do after a really long day in costume and we just won a football game and my friends want to go out to the bars? All I want to do is just cuddle in bed with like 3 gallons of water and drink them as quickly as possible. So it's definitely a little bit different, but you're exposed to so many other things and you have all of these experiences that pretty much no one else does. So it's different. Definitely not the regular college experience, but I love it all the same.
Yeah, you get to do things that no other student gets to do. You get to go to, these high-end donor functions in these crazy parts of the state and the country even, and you get to, you get access, what I would say, to places that no person should, let alone someone in a mascot outfit should, but Butch just kind of walks in and does what he wants. And it's I was a student body president. I was ASWSU president my senior year, and I can say that Butch has better access than the ASWSU president for sure. He gets to do a lot more stuff.
And on that note, people don't ask questions when Butch is around. It is a really weird kind of hall pass to do anything at least once. And then maybe you get a slap on the wrist, then you don't do it again. But people do not ask questions. So if, I don't know, there was one time there was like a fire truck that was driving by and I just kind of hopped in the driver's seat and was honking the horn. They were totally fine with it. And obviously it wouldn't be fine with a normal person doing that. So you apply that to pretty much every arena you're in, and you can go into the suites, the president's box, both at home and away stadiums, and you can pretty much do anything. It's kind of weird.
Huh. Okay, I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm assuming most of the time Butch is super hot. You were just sweating like crazy, hot all the time, whether you're inside or outside, right?
Oh, yeah. That, and honestly, that's probably our most common question that you ever get. Everybody's like, is it hot in that suit? Is it hot? And it is. It does not matter what mascot. Yeah, it is always hot. It doesn't matter how cold it is outside. It is always hot in that suit.
So my follow-up was, does Butch ever get cold? No.
Max, I don't know. Did you?
There was one time that it was, I think, 19 degrees out, and I was at a baseball game and I got into a snowball fight in the second inning. So my hands started to freeze, like the actual glove itself started to freeze. I think that's the only time I was cold. Even then, it was just my hands.
I remember when one of our Apple Cups was one of the coldest days it had ever been in Pullman. And I just remember being out there thinking like, God, this is nice. It was nice how warm it was in that suit. It was just hot, it was nice and hot in that suit. And he was still sweating. Everybody else is out there freezing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I was just nosy, curious. So looking at all the people who have been Butch, do you have a personal favorite? It can't be you, either of you.
I have a few.
Okay.
So going back to the whole tradition thing, sometimes Butch is thrust into different parts of Wazoo history, and they've been a fly on the wall for some of these really important events. And sometimes there's a big change in what Butch does or tradition he has that really affects everyone. And the biggest one that I think of is the beginning of Butch leading the Go Cougs chant. So in the early 80s and 70s, and even before that, this was two parts of the rally squad. One of them, or a few of them, would go over to the alumni section. A few of them would go over to the student section. They would have signs. One would hold up the Go, one would hold up the Coug. And then eventually it was 1988. So this was David Russell. And one of his cheer friends just kind of gave him the signs and pushed him out before the game out on the field. And at this point, Butch had never led Go Cougs. So he used the signs, led Go Cougs. It caught on immediately. It was awesome. And this is kind of where we get the Go Cougs motion. It's sweeping your arms from one side to the other, pointing from one side to the other, but it could also be seen as like holding up signs. That's where we get that.
Cool.
So that caught on perfectly. And then he goes out the next game and he brings the signs out to the field, but he doesn't use them. And again, the crowd caught on immediately. So the cool thing about this is now Butch has in his hands the ability to invoke home field advantage. And there are certain points in a game where, if I can get the crowd really, really loud, I might be able to influence what happens next. And at that point, David had given him and all of the Butches, including Zach and I after him, that ability, which I think is so cool. And it doesn't just happen in the football stadium, it's everywhere. So now when I play charades with friends, if Butch T Cougar comes up, that's the motion they do. So I thought that was so cool. Now, another thing, and maybe this will be a good segue for Zach. So some mascots do push-ups after we score points, and Butch used to, and he doesn't anymore, which I'm really happy about. Zach, I don't know if you can tell this story, but this is something that we've kept going.
Yeah. This is a out of shape story that turned into something all right. Where another one of the Seattle games we were playing, I think it was Grambling, and we were just smoking them. We had about 55 points on the board at this point, and every time we got a touchdown, it'd be, you get 35, and then you do 42 push-ups, and then you go out there. So at that point, I think I'd been up to about 200, 250 push-ups that I'd cranked out, and I was just exhausted, and I did not have any more, and I barely got up for the last like 10 of the 55, and I go and stumble into the tunnel. I basically collapse. I sit down and I just am just completely spent out, and I just hear this loud cheer of the stadium. Like we had obviously just gotten a turnover on the kickoff and had probably scored. And I turn and I look out, and we were dancing with the touchdown. So I had to go out there and somehow figure out how to do 62 push-ups. And I just did not have the physical ability to do that. So I walk over to this crew on the 20-yard line who I knew personally, and I knew they were always at games. I was like, I knew a couple of those guys and a couple of those students, and I just told them, we're doing this. You're going to push me up. And I just kind of like fell back into them like I was crowd surfing. And about the third or fourth push-up, when I realized we're going to have to do this again. It's like, Butch is never doing another push-up. Like this is way too good. This is way too easy. And so that's how that born. I was just too fat and lazy to get that next set of 62 push-ups up there.
And I'm so happy you were, because now Butch continues to do that. Anyway, Zach, I cut you off. Who's your favorite?
Oh, no worries. My favorite is actually the guy who I did the proposal for, Johan Fries. He mentored me, taught me. He was actually there for a couple years after he graduated, so he was able to kind of show me along. And if you ever see pictures of Butch with an actual neck, he was the only one that could pull off a neck. I don't know. He just had this long neck, and every time it's unmistakable when you see one of his pictures. Butch has a full actual neck, and so Johan taught me pretty much everything I know about it. He was great.
I think the cool thing about this being a secret, and how tight this community is you form this wild bond with the person before you and the person after you. So there's just barely a few months of overlap when one person is leaving and the next person is coming in. So you form this crazy bond. Like when I'm learning from the person teaching me, I'm just watching everything they're doing, right? How do they walk? How does their heel hit the ground? Do they do something weird with their hands? So you form this crazy bond, and they do an amazing job, or they did an amazing job teaching me. And it was really cool to be able to pass that along. So it's really neat to see this alumni group we had, and there's just so much respect. So I love the question. It's hard to pick just one.
Yeah. Hey, that's fair. I got another question, which is, I know this may be hard, but looking at the other mascots of other schools, if you had to pick like a favorite, do you have one? If so, what would it be?
Yeah, I've got one.
Okay.
I think the Arizona Sun Devil is super cool. Can I go on a tangent and tell you a quick story about
Oh,
him?
please do. Yes.
All right. So when I first got this job, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And I Googled mascot, and of course, some YouTube videos popped up, and then the algorithm takes over and sends you over to mascot fights. That's like the first thing that comes up. So now I think I have to fight someone, and I don't know how to fight at this point. So I quit my summer jobs. I pretty much live at this MMA gym that's right down the street, and I'm ready. And I know I'm probably going to lose the fight, but I know I'm not going to like look horrible in front of my fans. And the Arizona State Sun Devil is the first mascot that comes that season to Washington State. And he's kind of a scary, imposing mascot, right? He's got fire in his eyes. He's got muscles built in the suit. He's tall, and he's a trident. And the trident is real, it's sharp, and it's metal. So not only am I going to get beat up in front of 40,000 fans, I'm getting stabbed. Turns out the guy is the nicest guy in the world and a ton of fun to be around. We're still friends. We still text every now and then. So luckily, I never had to fight anyone. And then I learned that behind the scenes, all the mascots are friends. So you're never fighting another mascot, luckily. But yeah, that's one of my favorites.
I could tell you who one of guy who was kind of near my time, Kirk Jones. I could tell you who his was. He ended up marrying a Harry the Husky. She was on the cheer team and served as Harry the Husky for a year, and they were dating at the time, even when he was Butch and she was Harry, and then they got married. They lived down they lived down there in Phoenix, and they still, I mean, so he would want me to say definitely that his favorite is Harry. I think at one point coming out of a Pac-12 or Pac-10 basketball tournament, I may have pushed her like out of the way, not realizing it was her. I knew her personally, and didn't know at the time that she was in the suit. But favorite for me mascot, I think one of the favorite traditions I love is the St. Joe's mascot. How he never stops flapping his arms when he the St. Joe's. The St. Joe's mascot flaps the arm. I think they're the Eagles or some bird, and he never stops the entire game. The entire time he's out there, just moves his arms. And there's a couple of videos of like a couple of mascots trying to put like a tire around him or an inner tube, so he can't flap. And I think that is one of the coolest traditions. It's also one of the hardest things to keep up. I mean, I don't know how that guy does it.
I was like, he's got to have great arms.
Right. I do not. I've tried to sit there and do it for about 5 minutes just to see how hard. And man, after like 3, your shoulders and your arms are just so tired.
St. Joe's.
What about you, Kelsey? Other than Butch, who's your favorite?
That's you. I feel like I might stir the pot here. So, like I said, cheerleader, but also dancer. I feel like BYU's Cougar mascot gets down, and I just really appreciate that. So I have mad respect for those moves.
Oh yeah. I'll agree with you. I thought Cosmo was an awesome mascot. So I've done a few events with him, and he's absolutely fantastic, an absolute animal in the costume. You're right. He can dance, he can tumble, he can cheer, he can do it all. The weird thing about his costume is there are no eyes on the costume. So you can actually look in and, if you wanted to, poke the performer's eyes. Now that kind of turns into a visibility problem, because what if the sun is shining in the mascot's face and now you can see the guy's skin, which is a big no-no. So he has to put like makeup, like eyeshadow around his eyes, like dark eye black around his eyes, which is great, except you get kind of hot in a mascot suit and you sweat, and now you've got makeup in your eyes, which stings. So I don't know. I was doing an event with him and he really started slowing down right around the hour mark. And I was like, what's going on? And we were sharing a room because they thought it was funny to put two cougars together.
Right.
But yeah, he's a great guy. I love him.
That's
So
awesome.
speaking of cheer, sometimes Butch does cheer moves. Zach, I don't know if this happened to you, but they had tried making me a bass and a flyer, and I was horrible at both of them. So Kelsey, I just want to say hats off to you for being a cheer and dancer. Those are really hard jobs.
Thank you, but I feel like it's nothing compared to what getting the crowd going when you have all of the tools available is hard enough. So when you limit that to just body movements, mad respect. Mad respect. Okay. Time for the fun, which is I have 3 rapid fire questions for each of you to tie up this episode. I could hang out with both of you all day. This was so fun. Do you have something you want to say, Max?
Yeah. Do you mind if I just give a quick plug to 2 things?
No, go for it.
Okay, sounds good. So we've talked about the history of Butch, but I think there is this other thing that we should talk about, which is what happens after Butch. And the transition from Butch to corporate life is sometimes hard, right? Because you don't have barely anything on your resume and you have no business contacts. So how do you make that jump? And for me, probably not surprisingly, it was CougsFirst. So obviously, these people in CougsFirst are diehard Cougs, and they love talking to any alumni, and it was so easy to approach any of them. I'm a financial advisor, so I went up and talked to Glenn O, and he was so nice, and it was so easy to start a network when you have none, and he introduced me to a few others, and it eventually led to me getting a job in the industry. But making that jump is hard. It's something that we're trying to make easier, and I think CougsFirst is a really good key.
Oh, well, thank you. Zach, thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody who's working hard at CougsFirst, and a quick shout out to to Tony and College Hill and Jen, who are really helping with all that program. If you haven't gotten your copy of Butch's Game Day, the children's book written by CougsFirst director Tony Poston, you pick up a copy of that. That helps out the program a lot, and it's just a great book. It's you can tell this one was written by a Coug. It's got all these little things, and as you look through these little subtle things in the illustrations, everything, it is by far the best book on WSU, especially for kids. Get yourself a copy of that, and if you want Butch to sign it, you can reach out to any of us, and we will sign a copy for you as the big guy.
I completely agree. And Tony Poston has been an amazing support to Butch. So I know we haven't talked about this yet, but Butch does get a scholarship, but it's very small. It covers about half of your books. So I think sometimes it's better just to imagine Butch as like a volunteer gig, which is too bad, right? Butch puts in so many hours and he's the literal face of the university and he does so much. And sometimes it feels like he's not quite fairly compensated. So College Hill has made a Butch's locker room area where there's a whole bunch of apparel for kids, adults, babies, and it has Butch on it. And a portion of that goes to a Butch scholarship fund. There's also Butch's Game Day that Zach talked about, which is a really great book, and I buy it for all of my expecting friends. And that also has a portion going to Butch's scholarship fund. There's also a link that we'll include in this episode notes that goes directly to the charity. So if you guys want to donate directly, you can donate appreciated stock. You can donate cash as well. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us.
Yeah, and we'll have all of those options in the notes too. Go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I was just making a joke. I said we'll take your crypto too. If you want to send it, we'll take.
They don't. That's above my pay grade to answer any crypto questions. But I do want to end with the last 3 questions here. Which, number 1, if you could have a drink right now in Pullman, where would you go? Max and then Zach.
Pups and Cups.
A drink anywhere in Pullman right now?
Yeah.
Bowler gym.
Oh.
Watching volleyball.
Oh yeah. Okay, number 2, if you could only see one WSU football game in person this season, which one would it be?
That Wisconsin game. I coach the Ballard High School volleyball team, and we have a match that day, so I have to miss the game. So if there's any game I want to see this year, it's that Wisconsin game. I've been looking forward to that for a while.
I really like the town of Corvallis, and I also really love Benny the Beaver. So I think I do the OSU game.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Okay. And last question. If you could describe your time at WSU in one word, what would it be?
Love.
The cop out is indescribable, but no, I'm going to go incredible.
Love that. Awesome. Max, Zach, thank you for your time today. Thank you also for the history lessons, the stories, but also these awesome things that you're doing and promoting to really encourage people to give back to Butch. I think that's amazing. And if you're listening to this episode, like we said, we'll have all those resources in the show notes so you can click and buy and support the scholarship, the book, the baby clothes. I think that's everything. But thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you. This was fun. This was great. Thanks a lot, Kelsey.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey.
Okay, I want to end it with the Go Cougs. 1, 2, 3.
Go Cougs!
And that's a wrap. Thanks for hanging out with us on the CougsFirst podcast. We hope you leave feeling inspired, entertained, and encouraged to support yet another awesome Cougar-owned business. If you like what you heard, do us a huge favor and leave a review for the CougsFirst podcast on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest episodes, and please share this podcast with your fellow Cougs. And remember to thank CougsFirst for all of your products and services. But until the next episode, let's end it with a good old-fashioned Go Cougs!